Yo, 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 yo. What's going on? I guess I can't say Pokebros anymore, now that I'm doing writing. Um, what's good, guys? I really enjoyed recording the last video, where I critiqued something on this subreddit, this Destructive Readers subreddit. It was called The Necromancer's Daughter. I was a little harsh, admittedly, but I'm just gonna try and be honest. And I like doing writing. I like doing writing materials. This is more for me than anything else, truly. So I decided to come back today. I'm gonna do a few more of these, probably. Maybe not all today, but I'm probably just gonna keep going with this. And I found a piece that I think has been posted on here like a dozen times. Sophia and the Color Weavers, version 5, by the looks of it. I don't know what MG means, and I don't really care, to be completely honest. So let's take a look at the introduction here. We'll dive right in. We'll do sort of the same thing. We'll do a little bit of a read along, and I'll just kind of give feedback as I am going, what I like, what I dislike, so on. Hello, you beautiful people. I'm back for what will likely be my final crit of this chapter. Thank you so much to all those who critiqued last time. It was so useful. Alas, I don't have a computer or regular internet access, so I can only log into Reddit sporadically, but I was able to read everything, and it was both destructive and useful in equal measure. The biggest criticisms were that Sophia's character was non-existent, the opening didn't work, Sophia was too passive, and the language was too young. I have tried to address all of those things while trying to cut the fat where I found it, so I guess my questions are these criticisms still valid? Does the new intro work? Thank you in advance, JRG. So the writer is JRG Casually. Let's take a look. Oh, I already had it open. Alright. So I'm still trying to decide, like, because you guys probably don't want me reading to you, right? But then again, I don't want to just put the shit up on the page and have you read it. All right, we'll do a mix in between. Again, this is mostly just for my own fun, I suppose. Sophia Borden hoped for a tornado. Not a big tornado, just one small enough that the whole school would have to go home, but nobody would get hurt. She hoped for a pit to open up and swallow her. She'd even settle for being at home washing dishes. Anything would be better than where she was, standing at the front of art class, gripping a painting of an old boot, with the eyes of 24 students staring at her. When no tornado came or pit opened up, Sophia resigned herself to having to say something. Okay, so she's anxious school child, lives somewhere where tornadoes might be a reasonable thing to be concerned about. She painted a boot, and she does not want to talk about it. Oh, I guess she didn't paint it. Wait. So this is a painting of a boot I found, she said at last. So this implies to me she found, well, it doesn't apply to me, it just says she found it. But then she says, when I painted it, I tried really hard to paint the light, because last lesson we looked at light and how light is important. It's why I used a lighter color to paint the parts in the light, because light is important. Okay, so we use the word light 900 times in this paragraph. I get what they're going for. It's like she's repeating herself. Sophia regretted speaking almost immediately, but she just hadn't been able to make her mouth stop saying words. A few laughs echoed around the room as Sophia's brain tried desperately to say something that didn't involve the word light. Any questions? A girl at the front put her hand up. Why did you paint an old boot? I don't know, I just liked how it looked. All broken and folded. The leather is wrinkly and it kind of looked like a sad face. It was a really old boot and it probably had a long life. She shrugged. I thought I could make it look happy. Okay, so I just misread this. She found a boot and decided to paint it. Okay, fine, fair enough. She thought she could make the boot look happy, kind of like a manic pixie dream girl thing going on here, right? Like, played by Zoe Deschanel. Oh my god, I found a gross boot. I thought I could make it look happy, blah, blah, blah. I'm surprised that she's giving such a direct answer, and a quasi-confrontational one at that, considering the characterization right up here of her being, like, wildly timid. Stop talking, Soph. Please stop talking, her brain begged her. Young adult stuff, like middle grade writing, loves to do this, by the way. They love taking female characters and giving them, like, a quirky, playful, like, shortening of their name. Sophia... Actually, no, I know one Sophie, and I just call her Sophie. Actually, I don't talk to her anymore. But whatever, let's move on. That was really nicely put, Sophia, said Mrs. Ashe, her red-headed teacher. Another little, like, thing that kind of takes me out of it, her red-headed teacher. Is this important? I don't know. It just, you don't need to throw in, like, little descriptions like this until it becomes vital. That is a stylistic thing on my part, though. My writing tends to be very... I don't want to say utilitarian, because it certainly is not that. If anything, I'm far too much in the other direction. But I don't like the advice that you often get of, like, throw in the colors so that they can picture it. No, you don't need that. If it's not important, don't do it. And again, middle grade writing really likes this, like, making sure you know how everyone looks type thing. Don't think it's necessary. Again, I am harping on something that's not all that important, but it does just take me out for a quick moment. Sophia stumbled over a thank you and took one step towards her seat when Mrs. Ashe said something that made Sophia want to shove a paintbrush up her nose. Does anyone else have any more questions for Sophia? A hand shot up. Yes, Lucas? Asked Mrs. Ashe. I was just wondering. Sophia could see the kids around Lucas already smiling. Why didn't you talk about light? What? Hold on. She did talk about light, like several times. Oh, he's making a joke? The smiles turned into laughter. Sophia decided that after she'd finished sticking the paintbrush up Mrs. Ashe's nose, she'd stuff it up Lucas's nostril or somewhere much worse. Why is she... What did the teacher do? While Mrs. Ashe was busy getting the students to stop laughing, Sophia rushed to her seat at the very back of the classroom. Another student took his place at the front, holding a painting of sailboat. This is my boat, the boy said. That's not a boat, it's a painting, Lucas said, which brought more laughter. Whatever, I don't know. And you're not funny, you're an idiot, Sophia shouted. So her timidity, if that's a word, has receded pretty much immediately. I guess not. Or she would have if the idea of shouting in front of all of her classmates didn't make her stomach spin like a washing machine. I think just rewrite this a little bit because that confused me for a quick second. She settled for glaring at the back of Lucas's head and slunk back into her chair, shooting a hopeful look at the clock on the wall. Only another 45 long minutes to go. Closing her eyes, she imagined she was back in her little flat, watching bad TV with her big sister. Okay, that's a nice image. I like that. She's a homebody. A noise made her eyes shoot open. She blinked a few times in trying to make sense of what she was looking at. A tiny man was upside down in a pot of blue paint on her desk, loudly slurping away. A tiny man was upside down in a pot of blue paint. Sophia tried squeezing shut her eyes again. When she opened them, the man was still there, only now his skin and clothes were bright blue. What? She reached the shaky hand out to him. Quick as a snake, he turned and bit her. Pain shot up Sophia's finger and she jerked it back with a loud hey. Her classmates all turned to stare and Sophia felt her cheeks grow warm. There's something, she stammered. Except the little man had vanished. Sophia peered into the paint pots and checked her pencil case, but there was no sign of him. This seems important and it takes me out so much. Like, there just happens to be a guy, and this part needs to be rewritten to kind of connect these thoughts a little bit more. "Are you okay?" whispered Rona, the girl whose desk was closest to Sophia's and the nearest thing she had to a friend. Would you believe me if I said there's a tiny man here somewhere?" Rona laughed. "You're a weirdo, Borden." Again, like, cringy, right? Like, 13, 14-year-old girls, which I'm imagining these people are, they don't refer to each other by their last name like that. It doesn't happen. They would just call her Sophia. Sophia thought Rona might be right. She gave a weak smile and looked back at her finger. If she squinted, she was sure she could see little teeth marks just below the nail. Suddenly, Sophia's paintbrush moved. She grabbed it, holding it in front of her face and staring in disbelief at the little man that hung from the brush's brittles. He paused his paint licking and stared back. Then, he burped a big golden cloud at her face. Okay. "Gross." Sophia waved her hand, knocking over a yellow pot, which rolled across her desk, scattering paint as it went. Just before it could hit the floor, Sophia grabbed it and froze. Not the right punctuation here. Her mouth fell open as all the colors of the classroom were pulled into the air. Reds unraveled from pictures, blues leapt from walls, and greens slurped from the tiled floor. I feel like, did we use slurped before too? Yeah, we did. Okay, change this word. Use that once per chapter. It's way too unique of a verb. So the fact that I remember that feels weird. The whole room was filled with strings of color, and they were all shooting right at Sophia. She screamed, throwing a hand up to her eyes and causing the paint pot she held to fall to the floor. "Sophia?" A hand gripped her shoulder. "What? Sophia's hand fell away from her face. She was relieved to see the room back to normal. Though her heart still raced and she had to fight to stop herself shaking. "Mrs. Ashe, did you see anything strange?" "You mean, apart from the mess you've made? Look at you, you're colored in yellow. You're covered in yellow. What's going on? This isn't like you at all." Sophia glanced down at her uniform. Yellow paint stained the sleeve of her black school jumper. "I don't know. There's something, never mind. It was just, wait, look." The eyes of Mrs. Ashe and all her classmates followed Sophia's finger to where the tiny man was hopping on a shelf and licking at a painting. His stomach had doubled in size, poking out of the vest he wore, and glowing a different color with each paint he gobbled. "Do you see?" "What?" Mrs. Ashe squinted. "That painting? What of it?" "Well, does anything look weird to you?" Sophia was nearly shouting as Mrs. Ashe wandered over and thrust her nose at the painting. "Not really." The little person had stopped his licking, his beady eyes now watching Sophia's teacher. Sophia shook her head, swallowed, and prayed for whatever dream she was trapped in to end quickly. "Never mind," she managed to say. "It just looked funny from here." Mrs. Ashe ordered the class, who had all risen to see what Sophia was looking at, back to their seats. While her classmates shuffled to their desks, Sophia took a few steps forward. Paint trickled down her fingers, but her eyes never left the man. "Are you real?" she mouthed. Instead of answering her, he hopped his way along counters and cupboards. I like the way that sounds to my ear. He plopped atop bags and skidded across papers. You could probably combine these sentences. He even paused to admire his reflection in an old paint tin. Sophia spun, determined to keep the little man in her sights. As soon as he came closer, she would grab him. Then she'd show the class she wasn't crazy. The little man stopped atop a small cupboard just out of Sophia's reach. Light began to glow from his tiny hands. Sophia had a bad feeling about what that might mean. She glared, shook her head, and whispered the word, "No." For a moment, she thought he might listen. Then he waved a stubby fist. A mini rainbow appeared, arching all the way over to Sophia's desk. He slid across that rainbow like a surfer. Brief pause here just to mention, it's a little more inconsistent than I would like, but this author has a pretty good feeling for Like, what words sound good together? He slid across the rainbow like a surfer. That sounds good to my ear. Even the sentence right before, a mini rainbow appeared, arching all the way over to Sophia's desk. Tough to say this analytically, but they're doing a pretty good job with that. It's just that it's ringed often by very functional and less artistic sentences. And I think with the theme of colors and everything, lean into it. Lean into the artistry of the sentences itself. Like, let's see. There's. Well, I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it when I'm done reading the chapter. But they definitely have a little bit of a skill for that, and I wish they would lean into it a little bit more. It will make the writing process much longer. Of course, it won't be as easy to make 5 revisions of the same chapter, but it's good. All right, where were we? Sophia lunged. She had just enough time to see how grin before a lovely pink ball. To see, I'm so sorry. My bad. She had just enough time to see him grin before a lovely pink ball smacked her right in the face. Psst, she spluttered, eyes, mouth, and nose clogged with paint. As she wiped at it with her shirt sleeve, she stumbled back. Her ankle caught a chair, sending it to the floor with a loud clang. This doesn't need to be italicized, enough of that. Sophia, Mrs. Ash shouted. She stormed across the classroom. Enough of this. What's going on? Side note, not a huge fan of the name Mrs. Ash. I do not like the way that sounds out of my mouth. Sophia had no idea how to begin answering that. Today had been the worst day. Nobody had ever had a worse day. She is a catastrophizer, okay. Her presentation had been a disaster. It seemed completely fine, especially compared to the kid that came right after. Same shit. She was seeing things nobody else could see, and now she was covered in paint. A line of water built on her eyelids, and she blinked it away quickly. Now, again, though, I like this sentence structure. It could be rewritten a little bit, maybe, but I like a line of water built on her eyelids. That's good. Behind Mrs. Ash, the strange man was now face down in a bowl of red paint. He emerged looking just like a tomato and grinned. He's grinning a lot. It's like 3 or 4 times now. That made Sophia angry. She wouldn't let him make her look stupid again. She pushed past her teacher and rushed for him just as his little fingers extended and clicked. I don't know what his fingers clicking means, but... It was Mrs. Ash's turn to scream, for her bright red trousers were now nestling around her ankles. What? What in Lord's name? Mrs. Ash yelled as the man disappeared again and Sophia's fingers closed on empty air. It was the little man, Sophia shouted, eyes scanning the room desperately. She's lost her mind, a boy yelled. You'd be the expert on lost minds, Lucas, Sophia shouted back, though the insult would have worked better if she didn't snort pink paint from her nose as she said it. I'm not the one covered in paint. Sophia didn't know how to respond to that. He was right, and everyone was staring at her. Her lip shook a little, and she clenched her jaw. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She wanted to hide, but her heart was beating so loud that she was sure everyone would hear it wherever she went. So she stood and didn't cry, and it took all her strength just to do those 2 things. Again, good. I like this. This is well written. It's catchy. It paints the picture well. No joke, or no pun intended. She was saved from more embarrassment by the arrival of 3 strangers. They announced themselves with a loud knock, knock, knock on the classroom door. Before anyone could answer, an odd-looking woman in a serious-looking suit burst into the room. 2 others in equally strange suits hovered outside. Again, I like this a lot. An odd-looking woman in a serious-looking suit. That's good. That sounds really good. Good day, the woman said in a voice that silenced the room. I am looking for your teacher. Over here, said Mrs. Ash, who had quickly retrousered herself. Mrs. Ash, is it? Mrs. Ash, my name is Miss Longborough. I'm from the District Health Board. She flashed a black ID. I hate to thrust this news upon you, but I'm going to need you and your students to evacuate the classroom. Sharpish. A matter has arisen that will require our use of this room. I don't like the ish here. This brought a lot of cheers from the class. Sophia could only frown. She didn't know what a district health board was, but she was sure these people weren't from it. Okay. There was something very strange about the tall woman with the black ID. For one, she appeared to have glitter on her nose. Her shoes were odd, too. Each time she took a step, they let out a little burst of orange light. Health board, is it? Mrs. Ash cleared her throat. Well, yes, okay. I think that may be best then. She herded the excited students from the room with Sophia trailing behind. Outside the classroom stood the two other strangers. Sophia snuck a peek at them, surprised to see that they were about the same age as her. One was a boy with high cheekbones and perfectly styled black hair. The other was a silver blue-haired girl in big blue glasses. Their eyes met briefly before Mrs. Ash instructed Sophia to hurry along. You guys know I hate this already. Again, the descriptions, are they important? Silver blue hair, that's kind of just nonsensical to me. I just feel taken out by it. Halt! Sophia halted and gulped. She thought about running away, but the authority in the woman's voice trapped her in place. You, girl, come here. Very formulaic dialogue. Sophia turned slowly. Me? She looked around for her classmates, but they had already disappeared. Even Mrs. Ash was racing away, loudly muttering something about belts and trousers. The strange new woman, who was very tall and had a wild mop of gray hair, narrowed her eyes. What happened in there? Nothing, Sophia stuttered. The older woman scowled, and Sophia felt her stomach fall into her ankles. I like that. That's cool imagery. Okay. There was a small man. Then, realizing how stupid she sounded, added, no, there wasn't. Did he wear a hat? Who? The small man who wasn't there. Sophia unstuck her tongue from the roof of her mouth. Am I crazy? The woman raised a single eyebrow and looked Sophia up and down. Sophia shuffled her feet and did her best to hide the yellow and pink paint that covered her. I suggest you tell me everything that happened in this classroom and let me be the judge. If we have what I think we have, then you're very much not crazy and we're going to have to go back into your class and catch it. Sophia opened her mouth, closed it, and then opened it again in what was a good impression of a fish. She filled her cheeks with air, blew it out with a ripple of her lips, and told the trio exactly what happened. Cool. Okay, overall, I really like that. It's an interesting start. I don't know what the fuck is going on with the little man and all the colors and everything like that, but overall, it set a pretty interesting scene. Sophia is a little weirdly characterized in this chapter. Like, she's ultra timid and ultra shy, but also she's willing to yell at her classmates and make herself look kind of like goofy, instead of just saying like, oh my god, I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing. Some of the writing is really good. Like I said, the author seems to have a little bit of a knack for finding sentences that sound good to the ear. But a lot of it is functional, and a lot of it, especially the dialogue, is really formulaic. Like this classic, nothing, you girl, come here. I think that can be done better. The description should be a little bit more subtle. I don't need to know everyone's hair color. I do not give a shit, unless it is important to the story. But overall, I think this is actually a pretty strong start for the type of novel that I'm assuming that this is aiming to be. Let's take a look at some of the comments, if there are any. Yeah, there's 13. We'll take a quick scan over those and we'll call it a day. First impression, strong. Yeah, I like the opening line. Hope for a tornado. Like that whole bit was pretty good. Noticing lots of adverb use. A lot of newer criticizers focus on this, like, oh, don't do adverbs thing, because like Stephen King said some shit about that. Nonsense. Adverbs are fine. Do not fucking listen to that shit. Is the boot relevant to the story? I feel like no, it's not a Chekhov's gun at all. It's just giving her characterization. I'm fairly sure about that. It just means to show that she is like attentive to things that people would otherwise overlook, which is why we also believe the fact that she sees something that other people don't. It's not the boot's not important. I can promise you that. Lucas is a little shit. Yeah, Mrs. Ash is more of a stand-in for a teacher. That's fine, though. I'm imagining the story is directed at kids. Kids do not think about their teachers' internal lives all that much. Sure. Again, this guy's focusing way too much on the adverbs. That's not that big of a deal. Nope. Highly disagree. This is wrong. Your character descriptions are somewhat lacking. No, they are not. If anything, there's a little too much about them. You don't need to tell the reader exactly how to picture a character in their head unless that part is important to the story. If they are disheveled because they're anxious about something important, if they have black hair just for the sake of having black hair, don't give a shit. Doesn't matter. Again, newer critiquers do this shit a lot. Like, they think it's again, punish, but they think a lot of writing is paint by numbers. Describe the characters and cite your incident. Nonsense. Writing is art, and paint by numbers is not art. So I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this at all. Yeah, this is correct. The dialogue needs work. It's really formulaic. I think that's one of the weakest aspects of this. Yeah, I also had a problem with this, but I realized what she meant is a painting of a boot I found, not a painting that she found. Excellent technical grasp of the English language. I think it's good. Excellent is a little much. You leave a lot of unanswered questions about the setting, which you want for a chapter 1. Definitely agree with that. I could see the main character being someone I know. I could not, because I do not know children. But yeah, overall, mostly good there. Let's just take a quick look at the other ones. Okay. I don't see any criticism that looks terribly interesting to engage with here. What's the author's name again? JRG Casually. JRG, I think you're off to a pretty decent start here, actually. I think you can spice up the wording in some of the more mechanical parts of the writing. You have like I said a few times, you have a knack for understanding what words sound good together, but it's too sparse. You can tell which sentences you have put that effort into to make them sound really good to the ear, but I don't want to read 3 sentences that don't sound that good and then one that does. It's a lot more work, but you can do it. You can write this the way that you write those sentences. Setting-wise, I think that something neat is going on here. I think it is going to be pretty interesting. Chill it with the objective descriptions of the characters. I don't care that he's 5'5" and has black hair or anything like that. Give me more of a vibe and I'll work with you. But I think this is a good start. This was pretty good, and I'm pretty glad that I read it. All right, cool. Gonna keep going with these, so I'll upload another one probably a little later. Thanks.